Welcome to part 3. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look on how to use operations and functions in SASS. SASS gives us the ability to use standard mathematical operations inside our CSS file. Let's take a look on how to do it. If, for example, we have a class called container, and this class has the actual value of our container that in my case is 1170 pixels, and if, for example, I have a class called half, and the height that has this class has to constantly be the half of my container. To do that in CSS would have been pretty much impossible. We will be forced to use JavaScript to dynamically calculate the container, especially if our container is fluid and changes through all the media queries and the responsive part of our website. With SASS, we can do a dynamic calculation in real time inside our container. So let's set height is equal to container divided by 2. Let's save it and let's take a look in our CSS generated file, and we notice that here the height is exactly the half of this container. This is kind of standard. It's a pretty simple operation that you could think that it's kind of useless, but if you have this value, for example, manually added 585 pixels all around other classes, and at one point during the coding of your project you decided that you need to change the container width, would it be like really painful to update everything and go through all the classes and update all the single standard static values? Instead, here with SASS we can just simply change the container width, and automatically the operation will trigger and will give us the actual height, the new height based on the new container. This is a pretty standard operation and we don't actually need to use a function. But if, for example, we have another value called padding, and the padding is, for example, 25 pixels, and I want to extend my operation by saying that the height has to be the half of the container plus the half of the padding, you will notice here the value changed. And now we have a little bit of more complex operations that is not really an issue, but if we have multiple classes, so for example we have the class half1, and then we have the class half2, and then we decide at one point that this operation we want to change it, and instead of doing the sum, instead of adding the padding, we want to remove the padding, so do a minus instead of plus, we would have to go through all the classes that we applied our operation and change it manually. And this is really painful and it goes against the logic of SASS, so doing less code, more optimized. So to avoid all these repetition of the code, we can create a function that gives us the ability to reuse a specific snippet of code as many times as we want. So to create a function, we have to use the symbol @function, and we can name our function as we want. In my case, I want to name the function half height because that's what I want. And when you create a function, you can pass some variables, some dynamic variables that you can manually change. So in my case, I want to pass the first value and second value. And inside the function, we have to use again the symbol followed by a return. And here we can recreate these operations, but in a more dynamic way. So we can use container divided by our first value plus the padding divided by our second value, close with a semicolon. Now here inside our classes, we have to just simply call the same function that we specified here without the function before. So let's copy paste the function name, and inside the brackets we want to specify the first and the second value that we decided. So in my case it's 2 and 2, and we can dynamically copy and paste here, paste, save it, and of course you will notice here the value changed. And now if I want, instead of doing the sum, I want to do a subtraction. So instead of plus, I want to put minus, save it. Automatically all the functions are going to be refreshed and all the values are going to be updated by me just simply changing one single value inside a function. And of course, because the function is dynamic and accepts variable, I can simply change a value of a variable to change the value of a specific class, but without rewriting the same operation or changing the operation. I just simply change the variable and the operation will do the rest for me. Thank you for checking this video and see you next lesson.